Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today's joint event, Bridging the Gender Employment Gap, Conversations on Women, Research and Accessing Opportunities with the Mercury Alumni Association's North America chapter and the Immigrant and International Women in Science Network from Canada. My colleague Jackson Howard and I represent EURAXESS North America based in Washington, D.C. My name is Derya Büyüktanır Karacan. I received my PhD degree in Economics and International Relations of the European Union from Turkey. After I completed my PhD, I continued my studies at Georgetown University as a postdoctoral fellow. Following my tenure at Georgetown, I taught courses on global politics and European Union as an assistant professor. Besides my career credentials, I also have 13 years of experience on different national and international projects supported by the EU and World Bank. Currently, I'm a visiting scholar at the Institute for International Science and Technology Policy of the George Washington University with a research focus on science diplomacy and the global competition for talent. And I also work as a project manager at EURAXESS North America. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. We welcome questions and comments during the session via chat. So please feel free to share them there. Our speakers will answer a few questions after their individual presentations. And we will also collect the questions at the end of the event for an extended Q&A session. A recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel and also website. We are going to send a post-event email to you with the video and all the links shared during the event. Before I will hand over to the floor to Jackson, my colleague, to introduce himself and deliver a brief information about EURAXESS North America, I just want to say a few words. So we are in 2022, and unfortunately, we are still talking about women's fundamental rights and needs. We have a large percentage of women who are excluded from opportunities in the global workforce. The number of women pursuing higher education worldwide is increasing, but there is a significant gender gap in the employment rates of highly educated women versus men in many countries. The COVID-19 crisis also worsened the problems. Women in research, STEM, and other related fields are particularly underrepresented in the workforce. They face difficulties coping with gender biases in the workplace, lower pay, and limited social support. In this event, we aim to share with you the EU policies on women in research and innovation, the challenges and needs of women researchers, and the opportunities that they can take advantage of. So with that, I want to give the floor to Jackson.
Thank you very much, Daria. In working with the great team of speakers, including you today, I just want to thank you all, and I'm really excited about the perspectives that you'll all be sharing since we've been coordinating for quite some time now. So to give as much time as possible to everyone else, I would like to just give an extremely quick overview of EURAXESS with the hope that you will feel well aware of these free tools that are at your disposal on behalf of the European Union from EURAXESS, and that you'll use our platform in the short term and in the long term to advance your research career. So this will be the less gender specific aspect of today's conversation, but let me just share my screen. I'll ask Daria to interrupt if I have any technical issues. Just bear with me one moment, please. Okay, so as I briefly just introduced, we are an initiative of the European Commission called EURAXESS Researchers in Motion. That's the title, the overarching title of the entire project. It's divided into two components, EURAXESS Europe in EURAXESS worldwide. So Daria and I together represent the EURAXESS North America hub, where your local office responsible for Canada and for the United States, helping to connect you to Europe. If you're based in Europe, help you stay connected to North America, and basically deliver information, help you make and maintain those research and innovation connections that you need. So we promote the European Union's European Research Area, or ERA. That's a single borderless market for research, innovation, and technology across the EU. And our overall aim is to support researcher mobility and career development, researcher mobility in all directions, so regardless of where you're currently based. If you want to develop those connections elsewhere, as long as there's some European component, we're very happy to do that, and that's our central mandate. And if we want to enhance collaboration between Europe and the world, including helping you carry out your research in Europe or develop those ties across the Atlantic. And as a quick reminder, all of our services are free. So I'll begin to close this very brief introduction by just explaining the central components of EURAXESS, which are mirrored on the website. So if you go to the EURAXESS homepage, these the 4 titles you see here and this 5-part information slide are exactly the horizontal strip at the top of the website. So if you've never visited it before, you can very quickly just dip your toes in the water. The first component here, and I would say this is our bread and butter, is the jobs and funding database. This is where you as a researcher are invited to search for job opportunities, job vacancies and funding opportunities, and institutions, universities, companies, other research organizations can publish their vacancies. There's also a hosting database. This is where researchers can look for hosting offers from institutions. Oftentimes this happens when you might have a portable grant or fellowship and the funding is in your name and you're simply choosing an institution to affiliate with. And this is also where you can find research partners. In terms of career development, we have training and support services. We can tailor them to your need, which is why we encourage you to be in touch with us. And I would also encourage you to look at our archive of past recordings. Last year, we held a really great 5-part series on academic publishing, and this is based on audience feedback. So please send us an email, interact with us in the chat, and follow us on social media so we can understand your needs as researchers and help tailor our future content to you. And then finally, for information and assistance, there are 42 national portals online that provide information on research jobs and funding opportunities in basically in each European country, as well as personalized services in that country. They're the local experts, so if you tell us what you're interested in, we'll help make those connections and refer you to them so they can answer your inquiries to a higher degree than we can. And among those 42 national portals, there's over 600 support centers that have thematic expertise or expertise on specific funding schemes. So regardless of what you're looking for, let us know and we'll help make those connections for you. So thank you very much, Daria, for the introduction. Here is our shared inbox where if you reach it, one of us will quite promptly be able to look at it and hopefully get back to you soon. Please stay in touch, sign up for our bi-monthly flash note emails. We'll make sure I share a message in the chat with how to sign up for that email list and all of our social media URLs, but I'll just close here. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing from the other speakers.
Thank you, Jackson. And now I would like to invite our speakers to introduce themselves and their organizations very briefly. So the floor is yours. Clotilde, you can start.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Daria. Thank you, Jackson. So good day, everyone. I don't know if it's a morning or afternoon. So my name is Clotilde Ribaud. I am a European scientist living in North America, very well connected with EURAXESS for my different role, my professional role, since I am presently working at the Office of the Vice President, Research and Innovation at the University of Ottawa. So it's the national capital here in Canada. But today I was invited by EURAXESS for my volunteer work at the organization called Immigrant and International Women in Science Network. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
And thank you, Clotilde. So Natasha, please.
Sure, thanks very much, Daria and Jackson. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Natasha Mangal. I am currently representing here as a member of the board of directors for the Marie Curie Alumni Association and its North America chapter. I am actually a recipient of the Marie Curie grants in Europe, and I am originally from the US as a US attorney, but I'm completing my PhD studies here in France, in Strasbourg, at the University of Strasbourg. And it's also in affiliation with the Queen Mary University of London. I look forward to delivering a very short presentation on the history of the Marie Curie grant in Europe, and also to talk a little bit later on some of the opportunities that will be available to you as either a researcher, or if you're interested in some of the career opportunities and employment opportunities that are available through our organization. Thanks.
Thank you, Natasha. So today we are very excited to have Dr. Anne Pépin with us. She is a senior policy officer in the gender sector of European Commission's DG Research and Innovation within the unit D4 on democracy and European values. Previously, she was heading the strategic unit in charge of fostering gender equality at the French National Center for Scientific Research. Among her responsibilities, she coordinated EU-funded projects on the development and implementation of institutional change through gender equality plans and transnational network on the promotion of gender equality in the European research area. And since June 2017, she has been on leave from her permanent French National Center for Scientific Research position to join General Directorate on Research and Innovation. Now, without further ado, I will give the floor to Anne. Today, she's going to talk about the EU gender policies on research and innovation. Thank you, Anne, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Daria. It's a pleasure, really, to be here. I'm both French and Canadian, so it's a special pleasure for me to be here. But I must say that I wish the circumstances were a bit different. It's quite, as you know, with the Ukrainian crisis, the war on Ukraine that is going on, it's very worrying, and we're working a lot at EC level on trying to support as much as we can academics, researchers from Ukraine, and in particular women researchers. So I just wanted to underline this, that it's really hard conditions right now. So I will try to share my screen. And this work. Let me know if you hear me okay, and if you see my full presentation. Do you see it?
Yes. Full screen.
Yes,
That's great.
It's full screen? Okay, great. So indeed, I'll try to give you an overview of the latest updates in the policy development in the area of gender equality in research and innovation at EU level. But first, I'd like to give you a few numbers, figures about the representation of women in research and innovation. This data is taken from our landmark publication, I will say, She Figures, which comes out every 3 years. And this is the latest edition. And this follows the path through studies and career levels of women in research and innovation, in higher education sector, in government, so national funded research, and also in business and innovation. So I don't have a lot of figures that I can compare with the EU 27 figures, but the ones that I have highlighted here, and I even highlighted Mexico, that's North America. So just to give you some key pointers, we're almost at parity at PhD level, all disciplines considered, 48.9%, 1% in the EU. It's slightly above this in the US, slightly under this in Canada. If we look at information and communication technology, 22.4%, so quite a significant underrepresentation, which is very similar to the situation in North America. 32.8, almost a third of researchers in the EU, all sectors, all levels, all disciplines considered, are women. But if you look at the highest level, so full professorship of equivalent, which we call grade A, it's only 26%. It's still an improvement from 3 years ago, it was 24, but it's still very low. In engineering and technology, that's even lower, so 18%. Heads of institutions, of universities, 24%, also a slight increase, but it is very low. And if you look at scientific boards, less than a quarter of the leaders of those boards are women, and slightly higher, close to a third, are board members. The underrepresentation is even more important in innovation field. Patent applications that are submitted by women, it's less than 11%. And if you look at the percentage of scientific publication that take into account a gender dimension, so that integrate sex and or gender analysis, so looking at differences, biological differences, or looking at sociocultural aspects in the topic of research that is studied, that's very low still at global level, and it's around 2%, and slightly better actually in North America, that's overall in the EU. If you want additional data, you have the links there, you will have the presentation, and you will have there's a full report, there are interactive tables, even policy briefs on key topics that might be of interest to you. But now I'll give you an overview of our framework, which is, as already it was mentioned, the European research area. Since 2012, gender equality and gender mainstreaming in research is one of the top 6 priorities. And this covers 3 objectives: gender equality in scientific careers at all levels, gender balance in decision-making, and also the integration of the gender dimension into the content of research, with an overall approach, a systemic approach to try to address this through institutional change, through gender equality plans. So this has been advanced quite a lot. This framework has been a catalyzer for some member states to really develop their gender equality policies for the research sector, but still there are persisting inequalities. You saw the She Figures data, and we know that we need to better address opening gender equality policies to other social categories and grounds for discrimination. So intersecting aspects, so intersectionality, but also better involve the private and the innovation sectors, and make sure that at EU level, geographical diversity and inclusiveness is really helped. Other aspects, such as gender-based violence, we know we seriously need to better address this. So this is why there is a new communication that was published by the European Commission in 2020, which proposes to work with member states, with stakeholders, umbrella organization of universities, to develop inclusive gender equality plans and policies. And this is something proposed by the Commission, but it's also something that the countries are supporting. And recently, in November, a pact for research innovation in Europe was adopted by the Council, so by the member states, and that sets gender equality and inclusiveness as a principle and a value of the European research area. Some Council conclusions were also adopted with an ERA policy agenda with 20 actions that until 2024, member states, associated countries, and stakeholders and the Commission will jointly try to implement. And there's a specific action on gender equality and inclusiveness that builds on the Ljubljana Declaration. So I won't go into the detail, but this is quite important because this was spearheaded by the previous presidency of the Council of the EU. So that was Slovenia, and they really pushed for a declaration to be adopted, and it was endorsed by 25 of the 27 member states and also associated countries and the Commission as well. So this is grounds, commitment that we will try to improve the situation. So this action has 4 interlinked outcome deliverable. I would go really into the detail, but what is really important is that we find a mechanism to coordinate the implementation of all aspects of this inclusive gender equality and plans and policies. And one specific action is on gender-based violence. We want to try to achieve some sort of strategic engagement, such as a code of conduct on gender-based violence in research, in innovation, and also involve the research funding organization to better integrate the gender dimension and also ensure that there's no biases in research assessment. So that's our roadmap for the next coming years. And all this builds on what we introduced in Horizon Europe, which was the new framework program for research and innovation for 2021-2027. There's really a clear strengthening of the cross-cutting aspect of gender into the program, and that affects 3 levels. First of all, as an eligibility criterion, so you cannot apply to the program if you don't have a gender equality plan in place, and I will detail that a little bit. Then the integration of the gender dimension is mandatory by default across the program in all the topics, unless it's specified that you do not need to do it. When it's a very technical or very theoretical topic, this may not be relevant, but in many cases, it is relevant. And we have case studies, methods, guidance for applicants to better understand what this entails. And another aspect is gender balance within the research teams that we fund. This is now a ranking criterion when you have proposals that have the same scores. Another novelty is the fact that researchers can self-declare their gender along 3 categories. It used to be only 2, women and men. Now it's women, men, and non-binary. Now, gender equality plans. So we are requesting that all universities, all research organizations, and all public bodies from member states and associated countries have a gender equality plan in place that needs to comply with certain requirements. And this is now enforced as of 2022. This does not apply to organizations from non-associated third countries. So it doesn't apply to organizations from Canada and the US that are applying to proposal, given the fact that in any case, the US and Canadian organization cannot benefit from funding, but in any case, they do not need to comply with this requirement yet, and private for profit either. So what is this requirement? Organization, legal entities that need to comply need to have a public document, the gender equality plan, with your targets, with your objectives and actions, needs to be public, endorsed by the highest level of management in your organization. On your website, you need to have dedicated resources, financial, human, to implement the plan. You need to ground it into solid data, sex and or gender disaggregated data, and annually report on it. And you need to build awareness, training, capacity building on what gender equality means, entails in a research and innovation and teaching institution, in particular regarding unconscious biases. So that's the requirements. And we recommend that people address in their gender equality plan these 5 areas: work-life balance and organizational culture, gender balance in leadership and decision-making, gender equality in recruitment and throughout career progression, the integration of the gender dimension into the content of research and of teaching when it's a teaching institution, and measures against gender-based violence, including sexual harassment. So why I'm insisting on this is because if you intend to apply to an organization that's in the EU, and if you intend to apply to Marie Sklodowska-Curie or ERC grants or other types of grants, the hosting institution will need to comply with this. So they are accountable with respect to this. So you can expect that they have measures in place to support gender equality. And you can voice your concerns and participate in the implementation of these gender equality plans. Of course, not all organizations yet have these gender equality plan. We can see there's a whole dynamic going on the adoption of this gender equality plan, and we provide guidance for organizations to understand what it means and practical examples. So this tool here, it's a lot of examples and it's being further updated. We have been funding for quite some time some gender equality related projects, and under Horizon 2020, this was under the Science with and for Society work program. And we are delivering training in those countries where there are most organizations that do not have a gender equality plan in place. So I won't detail too much of these, but this is going on. I just talked about the SWAF's Science with and for Society gender-related projects. Here, I underlined the two projects where there are North American partners. So GenderNet Plus is a transnational collaboration of research funding organization, and CIHR and NSERC from Canada are partners, and actually are co-funding research projects with European research funding organization to third parties, to projects that are integrating the gender dimension in their contents. And Gender STI is a project also mainly with national level players, but not only, to develop the integration of a gender perspective in multilateral and bilateral dialogues. And there you also have CIHR, you have Georgia Tech, you have a Mexican institution, and you have the Ontario College of Art and Design University that are partners in that project. So you may be interested also to look at what these projects are developing. And some opportunities in the new work program under Horizon Europe, which is now called the Widening Participation and Strengthening the European Research Area. There are several topics that are open. Of course, this is more at the organizational level, and it's more for member states and organization and associated countries. But if you want to look at the type of projects that we are funding there, you may be interested. And then a few words, I guess you will have a longer presentation on Marie Sklodowska-Curie action, but I just wanted to underline here and also give you the link to the current work program, some changes, some improvements with respect to the Marie Sklodowska-Curie action that were supported under Horizon 2020. Now, family allowances will be accessible to all researchers during the whole project. It used to be that you had to request it at your proposal submission time, and you couldn't not. If something happened to you, you became pregnant, you could not benefit. Now you can through the whole project. And there's also a long-term leave allowance that's provided to employing institution when there are leaves. So that's maternity, paternity, parental, or sick or special leave. Marie Sklodowska-Curie are now really looking at the difficulties that researchers and then families are experiences in cross-border situation. So there's much more attention paid to that. And the LGBTIQ equality employment, that's also taken into account. So there's a broader definition of family for recognized LGBTIQ couples. They also have access to these family allowances when there are such relationships that are recognized in the fellow's home or in but if it's in another country where it was established. So that's major progress with respect to Horizon 2020. And a few words about the European Research Council grants. So the elite, I will say, funding through there are different levels of grants: the starting grants, the consolidator, advanced, the synergy, the proof of concept. So you can have information in the ERC work program. I put the link down here. And the thing, what I wanted to underline is that within the Scientific Council, there is a dedicated working group on gender issues that developed a gender equality plan for 2021-2027 with specific actions, raising awareness on the gender policy at ERC level among potential applicants, trying to increase gender balance into the applicants in all research fields, also raising awareness on the benefits of having gender balanced teams, paying really close attention to potential gender biases. There are trainings on unconscious biases for all the standing panels that are evaluating ERC grants. It's general throughout Horizon Europe, but it has been developed for a long time at ERC, and also trying to have gender balance among the ERC peer reviewers. So these are just a few examples of what we are doing at Horizon Europe level. And in case you're planning to create a deep tech company in the EU or in associated countries, just for you to know that there's really a strong focus, a strong panel of measures that are applied under the European Innovation Council, and the Women Tech EU is a program that supports women-led deep tech startups. It started in the 2021 work program with 50 early stage deep tech startups that were be funded, and it worked so well, so many applications, that in 2022, the budget is raised to 10 million. It was 3.75 million. And we are going to fund 130 companies roughly. And that comes with a mentoring, coaching, training program and a leadership program. So these are just a few examples of what we are developing to support more gender equality in research and innovation. We have a webpage, a policy webpage that I really invite you to check. It's regularly updated, so you will find information there. And if you have additional questions, this is our functional mailbox, and I'll be happy now to answer any questions that you may have now or later. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne. I think it was really useful for me, I mean, personally, to hear about the new policies and approaches of the EU. And as I see, you are really including the women researchers, both in research and innovation. That is really amazing. I hope the other countries will also take some of these new approaches, and then, you know, it's going to affect a lot, I mean, in the future. So thank you for joining, sharing all this info for us. So I'm just looking at the chat box. It seems that we don't have any questions. So I can just give the floor to our next speaker, to Dr. Clotilde Ribaud of the International and Immigrant Women in Science Network in Canada. And she will share with us a recently published report that covers the result of survey that they conducted in Canada with the women researchers. Floor is yours, Clotilde.
Thank you, Daria. Hi again. I very much appreciate your presentation, and I used to work in France and Belgium under ERC, and I'm very excited to see that it is changing, and I'm very happy to tell you that it's also changing in Canada. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Hope it works well. Oops. So yeah. Once again, thank you so much, Daria and Jackson, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to bring the voice of our organization here in Canada. So who are we? We are an organization, we are a community full of immigrant women, highly educated in STEM. And so we are freshly new. We start almost 4 years ago now. It is a national organization, because here in Canada, we know we have the difference between the province and the federal, and we are a non-for-profit organization. It runs because of people like me who completely volunteer. So it's women, we realize wherever we come from, we are coming from either Europe, Asia, South America. When we want to settle in Canada, we might have a huge difference. Okay, we come from different background, different religion, everything. But we realize that when you come here as with a STEM degree, we face the same barrier. So instead of staying separated, we decided to gather, because we realized we will be stronger together. So our main objective is to really have this community of women, to give them support, to give them advice by sharing our own experience. Any tips when you come to Canada? What is the best way to pursue your life as a scientist? And so we gather every month. We share every information we have on our social media. And this is the first mission: support and mentor any newcomers wishing to settle in Canada. And our second mission within my role precisely is to advocate for us, okay, to just create awareness of what is it to be a woman today, highly educated in STEM, and we just want to give our full potential in the job market. And so we realize that if we want our voice to be heard, we will have to give data. It's not about chit chat, okay? It's about what is the reality. So at the end of, we realize we're going to launch a survey. So we launched a survey right in the middle of the pandemic. And we ask our members, okay, 45 different questions, and an amazing group of our organization gather all the data and work very hard. And we launched a new survey. Please, you can find it, it's open access. You can find it on our website if you want all the details. Here, I'm just going to summarize in accordance with our topic today, okay? Like when you are a scientist, how can you have actually access to employment? So I'm gonna bring, yes, like Anne just mentioned, the importance of women. Here, I'm gonna tell you, not gonna lie to you, it's more easier if you're European coming from Western Europe to Canada. You will see that when you are a minority, okay, it's even harder. Okay, so that's the reality. So more than 250 people answer our survey. And so just, among these people, we identify 63 different countries. Many of them are coming from India or Brazil, but I can tell you that we have a large community of people coming from Europe. And the beauty of our community is our diversity. So just for your information, 92% of our community are speaking different languages than English and French. We are the two official languages in Canada. Actually, most of them speak at least 3, even 4 different languages. And they have to add, obviously, English or French, depending on where you're living in Canada. So like I told you, we are a community with very highly educated. It means that from the respondents, more than half of us, we already have a PhD. Some of us, like me, we've got a PhD overseas. Some of them have their PhD in Canada. And I can tell you that many of those who don't have a PhD are actually in Canada in PhD doctorate. So this is our community. We are ladies highly educated in STEM. So when we ask them the question, okay, what about your occupation? Are you working? You are highly educated, okay, either in IT, either in mathematics, physics, chemistry. Are you actually presently working on your field? And the answer is that the majority of us does not, okay? We don't work in our field of expertise. That's the reality, okay? More than half of us said we are working in academia. I just wanted to make sure that they are not having a tenure or tenure track position. They are not assistant professor or professor. They are mainly PhD doctorate or postdoctoral position. It means that we are in contract, okay? That's the reality. So we were very wondering about, okay, what about the Canadian job market? And we asked them, are you satisfied with the job opportunity in Canada? And the answer was 63% of the respondents say no. And this is not because Canada does not have any opportunity. On the contrary, okay? Canada, like Europe, the priority is innovation. We talk about clean tech, quantum, AI, 5Gs, climate change, obviously COVID, and so much more. It means that when you have a degree in STEM, you expect to find a job in your field. But actually, it's not because we as an immigrant, we don't have necessarily the access to these jobs. And the reason is because when you're an immigrant, your diploma sometimes is not recognized by Canada. Okay, that's the first. And in my case, coming from France, I can tell you, you have to pay, but don't worry, your diploma is recognized because PhD, that's the power of having a PhD, it's international diploma. But the professional experience you might have outside Canada is not well recognized. Okay, this is something you need to know. You mentioned the lack of opportunity in academia, but I definitely think it's the same, either you're in Europe or in Canada or US, okay? The position, the competition to reach a position in academia is fierce, okay? So it's the same either you're in Canada or France. And obviously in Canada, you just know if you're interested, the job market is very well hidden. You need network, you need people to know you. So that's pretty much the arguments they explain. So then we ask about, are you having a job? Are you satisfied with your current role in Canada? And this woman, highly skilled, unfortunately, almost 58% of them say they're not satisfied. And the main reason is because they feel like they are underemployed. So once again, we want to give our full potential, but we have this feeling that we cannot. We have barriers. And I'm not going to lie to you, many of the reasons was discrimination, okay, due to gender or due to the fact that many of our members are rationalized, okay? So that's the reality even in 2020. Having that said, I want just to be aware that Canada is still the land of immigrants. I live in Europe, I live now in Canada. I can definitely tell you that they are very open to immigrations. And yet, they even in their politics, in the science policy, they keep telling us that EDI is fashion. Every institution have their EDI plan. It's just, we bring that number because we realize they lack data from our community. And this is what our members respond. And so the last portion of our survey concerned the COVID, because we were right in the middle. We started in November 2020 and we end in February 21. And so I think everybody can just mention the same thing, either you are in Europe or in North America. COVID was very struggling. I think a lot about the students because we have a lot of women in masters, in PhD, and here in Canada, the university closed. Okay, they have to do their job in the basement of their parents, but most of them don't have their parents here. So they feel pretty much alone without access to the campus, without access to their friends and communities. So they were very, very hard for the students. And For the first number, the 12% who lost their job, just to compare, a study from Statistic Canada showed that the Canadian citizen, that this number is 8%. So once again, everybody suffered during this pandemic. It's just that immigrants, we have this feeling that we have a higher percentage of losing the job without obviously counting the mental health and everything. So that's the reality. That's what I want to bring you today. Having that said, I very much encourage anybody who wants to come from Europe to Canada to come. We have a lot of fundings, and including fundings related with Europe, and I just mentioned it before. There is a lot of money in research here, and they start to have specific programs for women, for immigrants. So what we can change, and I agree with many things that I heard just previously, is from my point of view, what we can bring. We bring 21 recommendations on the report. I'm not going to mention all of them. For me, my feeling every day when I speak about it is that we need to train the people about EDI, because my feeling is that the executive and the leader, they focus on the diversity, but they completely neglect the equity and the inclusion. It cannot work, okay? It's not having some statistic like we want to have 25% of women. This is not how it works, okay? This is the very short, for me, you need to be inclusive, you need to understand, to adapt your work to every people. That's how my feeling. So for us, definitely is the recognition of our diploma, the recognition of our foreign experience outside. And I am one of the many examples. In my job, I make connection between France and Canada every single day. That's my job to bring. And if I didn't have my knowledge of the research landscape in France, I wouldn't have my job. And this is not easy. Research landscape is very specific, so different than the other countries in Europe and here in North America. So I very much encourage anybody coming from Europe to use all that knowledge, because here in Canada, they don't have our knowledge back in Europe. So thank you very much again. If you have any questions, I would be more than welcome to share my professional, personal, or this report. Thank you again, Daria and Jackson, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Claude. I think you shared with us a lot of messages in your presentation, not only the survey. So I'm now, I have so many questions also in my mind, and like one or two of them. So how we can have more people, more women, perhaps not only in academia, but we want to see them as entrepreneurs, you know, some people outside of academia. This is really one of the top priorities of the EU, I know very well. So I think we just need to take all these recommendations and messages, and hopefully someone is or some policymakers are going to listen to all these messages, and then perhaps it's going to be very helpful, because these kind of reports really, I mean, important, because we raise the voices of women through these different tools. So as EURAXESS, we are also going to share our survey results in the near future about the challenges and needs of the European researchers in different regions of the world. So thank you so much again. And I'm just looking if we have questions to Claude, and I think we don't have. So I can just give.
I can see, sorry, Daria, someone is.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the chat box. So please go ahead.
Is that me? Hi.
Yeah. Hi, Katerina.
Okay. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for organizing this event, for bringing these wonderful contributors and speakers, and giving all these different perspectives. My name is Katarina. I'm the chair of the North American chapter of the MCAA, so the Marie Curie Alumni Association. I'm really interested in this topic and how we can all sort of, so my question is around how we can actually bring together all the information that we've just heard to make it actionable. So, and we have heard about how important it is to reinforce gender balance in research proposals in Europe. I'm very happy to see that it's not just about women and men, but there's non-binary communities there as well included, because I think that is a big part of the puzzle that needs to be brought in, that is obviously not captured with this binary categorization. So I'm really happy to see that. But I'm an European myself, I'm Portuguese, and my view of Europe, as you know, is very different from that of a German or a Dutch, or so the distribution in terms of funding, for example, Southern Europeans and Eastern Europeans do not necessarily have the same access for different reasons to this research funding. Typically, at least, that's how it's been. So how do you see gender palliating some of that? I mean, you've mentioned that there is specific guidance that is being designed to help countries that might not have the right infrastructures to address and build these gender plans, right? But how do you see like in practice that being put forward? Is it through like NCRs, like the national contact points? Is it like offices of research? Like what exactly are we talking about? Or is it just plain documentation that people need to read, which is typically in English as well? And so there's a language barrier in Europe as well. That's part of the barrier to accessibility. And how do you see North American countries, specifically US and Canada, as third parties to actually, what would be the best way that they could contribute to overcome this gender or overcome this gender gap or these gender issues in Europe, while also palliating some of the problems, the issues that we are witnessing here, as Clotilde just mentioned. Like there's also barriers here in Canada that are experienced by the community, the immigrant community, and that comes from everywhere, including Europe. So we have issues here as well. And I wonder, I'm just trying to sort of make the connection between everything we've heard. So how do you see, and the question is specifically to you, how do you see these third parties, these third countries like Canada and the US participating in the research, in EU funded research? How do you see them participating in a way that allows for a progress in terms of bridging the gap, the gender gap in Europe, but also here? Does it make sense? Is it too cool?
Well, I'll try to answer. So I guess the question is for me, but
yes, yeah.
I already in my presentation, I underlined two projects that are actually involving major research funding organization. In Canada, there was one before where the National Academies of Science of the US was participating in. So there is a lot of sharing of experience and actually I can talk about this previous project which was called GenderNet, because at the time I was the coordinator. So there was really a lot of progress in certain aspects of sharing on how to support institution in developing action plans for gender equality. So this really came out of the project, but also on how to better take into account gender issues and in the content of research. So this maybe it's not so easy to grasp. Maybe I went a little bit too fast on this, but it's For example, I mean, prescription drugs, let's say anything that's biomedical, there are differences at the biological level, but there are also differences related to socio-cultural aspects. And I think everybody heard about biases in artificial intelligence. So all these aspects, that's something we've progressed a lot. And that was very much thanks to collaboration with the Canadian Institute for Health Research, for example. So there is a lot of collaboration. And I mentioned a project that's running right now on trying to improve gender equality aspect in international collaboration. So I can put the link in the chat. That's Gender STI. If you check there, you will see the types of initiatives, concrete collaboration activities that are being developed to advance on this front. And to take one example, because I'm talking about gender equality plans, which is now a major approach for the European Commission. Under the 7th framework program, the Commission started funding the implementation of such gender equality plan in universities and other types of research organization in collaborative projects. So already a lot of exchange between different countries. You were talking about different situations. So that was a mandatory requirement that you take less advanced and more advanced, and from geographical balance in Europe. But that program was very much inspired by the advanced program that the National Science Foundation put into place in 2001. So I won't go back too much in the history, but maybe some of you know that in 1999, the MIT came out with a major report underlining gender inequalities at MIT, and it was actually senior women scientists that developed that report. And following that, the NSF changed its approach, saying, look, the issue, we have supporting schemes for individual women, but that's not going to change the situation. So we have excellent women, we support them in their PhDs, they go into the system, and they don't get out of it at the same level of men. This problem is the system. So that's why they implemented this advanced program and supporting at very high amounts universities to implement gender equality plans. This has really changed the situation in many higher education institutions in the US, and it's inspired by that program that we are doing that, and even going further, because now we're requesting that anybody applying to our program needs to have such a plan in place. And so maybe I didn't answer totally your question, but there are really links, inspiration, collaborations, and there's still room to do more of that, indeed.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Kat, for your question. Yeah, it's a bit difficult question to answer, because it includes policy, stakeholders, a lot about this, area. So thank you, Anne and Clotilde. So I want to give the floor to Natasha Mandel, who is a PhD researcher and a board member of Marie Curie Alumni Association North America chapter. So floor is yours, Natasha.
Thank you very much, Daria, and thank you very much again to all of the speakers that were a part of the presentation so far. They're incredibly rich presentations, and I myself have a very brief presentation for you all, and it will be elaborating on the Marie Curie grant. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, I hope everyone can see. And
yes.
Yes, okay, great, thanks, Jackson. Okay, and again, thank you for joining us today for this wonderful event in celebration of International Women's Day. Again, my name is Natasha Mangal, and as mentioned before, I'm currently a PhD researcher at the University of Strasbourg and Queen Mary University of London. So to continue our conversation on women in research, I will deliver a very brief presentation on the Marie Curie Alumni Association, which I recently became a board member of. And I will explain a bit more on the history of the Marie Curie grant, its goals, my personal experiences as a beneficiary of the grant, and my current affiliation with its Alumni Association. And at the end of my presentation, I'll briefly mention some of the benefits of becoming a member of the Alumni Association, as well as provide some information to you in case you're interested in pursuing a grant or postdoc within this Marie Curie grant framework. So first, in honor of International Women's Day, a brief word about Marie Curie herself. Marie Skłodowska-Curie was a Polish-French physicist and chemist, and she was the first female Nobel Prize winner. She later went on to win 2 Nobel Prizes in her lifetime for her research on radioactivity. In the EU, this type of grant is awarded, this Marie Curie grant is awarded under the overall Horizon 2020 policy package, which Anne Pépin really wonderfully explained in our earlier discussion. And this package of spending in the European Union is meant to promote research and innovation in Europe as one of its goals. So to advance science and related fields, the Marie Curie grant is joined by the ERC grant, the European Research Council grant, and is considered one of the most competitive and generous research grants available in Europe. So in homage to her and her legacy, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions are meant to promote interdisciplinary research or research combining multiple fields and international cooperation. Now, to briefly demonstrate the significance of the grant in Europe, I'll talk a bit about my own PhD program, the research network that was involved, and the lasting impact of the grant. So in 2017, I joined the Pépin Innovation Society project, which was a continuation of an existing research network for institutions in Europe specialized in intellectual property law. The program received funding through the European Commission, and the goal was to produce 15 PhDs, all specialized in different areas and aspects of intellectual property law and innovation. We are truly an international bunch as we come from many different countries and backgrounds. I'm the only researcher selected from the US, but we also have researchers from Italy, India, France, the Netherlands, Spain, Ukraine, Slovakia, Georgia, and Kenya, all within us 15. All of us are based in one primary institution out of the 5 institutions in Europe, and one secondary institution where we typically spend 6 months continuing the research project. As PhD candidates, we were also obliged to attend trainings, conferences, and seminars at each institution every year, which resulted in a very travel-heavy but incredibly rich PhD program. As I'm now at the final stages of defending my PhD, I have the opportunity to reflect on the impact of the Marie Curie grant on my research and indeed on my own personal career. Since this grant in particular emphasizes networking and collaboration, I've built a very strong personal network of research connections here in Europe, which I don't think would have been possible under other PhD programs. And of course, in honor of our current discussion on the role of women in research, a precondition of this grant was to encourage a gender balance between the candidates selected. So of us 15 PhD researchers, 7 of us are female, so it was quite perfectly balanced in the end. Now I'll talk a bit about the association I'm currently a part of and finish with some interesting opportunities that are available for current and former beneficiaries of the grant. So the Marie Curie Alumni Association was formed as a way to maintain the strong network and bonds that are emblematic of the grant itself. It also helps researchers to connect with other alumni, seek career opportunities, and continue their training or find additional funding for other research projects. The impact of the grant and its alumni, however, reaches much further than Europe. So there are smaller groups called chapters organized to focus on activities at the local level in different geographical areas. For me, I am currently part of the board of directors for the North America chapter. And as a member of the board, I help to organize events which encourage exchanges of research and information. And now to briefly conclude, here are some opportunities that are available to researchers and some links which will be provided in a follow-up email. So both current and former recipients of the grant, I'd like to highlight these few points of interest, such as the availability of microgrants. And if we have some time during the Q&A session, I can elaborate on a few if some of the audience members are interested. And that sums it up. So thank you very much for all of your attention.
Thank you, Natasha, for this very brief but very rich presentation. So I'm looking if we have a question for you, but or any hints, it seems no. Okay, so we can have a very short question session. So I have one question for each speaker, so we can perhaps start with Clotilde. And so Clotilde, as a scientist yourself, navigating in research and academia for years, do you have any advice for researchers wishing to pursue their career in academia, either in Europe or North America?
Thank you, Daria, for the question. I would like to say that when we are a PhD, a postdoc doctoral position, I think it's still open to women. I've seen so many women, but the gap, and we explain it, is to pass through this contract to a really permanent position. This is where I see the gap, the big gap. Mm-hmm. Obviously, having an experience overseas, such as an American going to Europe, or eventually a European coming here to in North America, this is something fantastic. I mean, I very much encourage you for different things. First of all, it will definitely be a plus on your resume, but the truth is that everybody is doing it. So you have no other choice, but you can go to Asia, of course, you can go to other countries. But I'm very much encourage any one of you to live outside your zone of comfort zone. And one of this is something we talk with Natasha, when you're European living in North America or the other way, at the same time you obviously learn new technology, new stuff, but at the same time you open yourself to a new culture. And that's huge. You improve your network and that you open your mind. This is very fantastic. But having that said, if your main objective is to stay in academia, I would say you're in Europe, you want to go back to Europe, there is something that you must not forget, is to keep in touch with your network. Because if you leave several years, I used to go with an ERC. An ERC is 5 years, it's fantastic. But at the end, 5 years later, everybody forget about you. So keep in touch with your previous supervisor and stay highly connected. If you want to go back to your home country, stay connected. The network, your CV is not enough. I'm sorry to tell you, stay very highly connected and do not neglect the role of your supervisors, okay? They can help you, they can boost you, because there is a way of ending an associate professor or in any country. So I very much encourage you to have this amazing experience, because it's going to boost your professional career, but your personal experience, truly. But please do not forget the network, okay? Because I used to be like this, tend to focus on my excellence in research, publish, okay? It's publish or perish, that's what we say between scientists. But today, I don't know, maybe you have other things to say. I can tell you in Canada, I realized that also the experience of diffusing the science outside your community and promoting the science outside, it can be also a plus. In Canada, it is really, I'm working with the L'Oréal Canada to award Women in Science. And when we receive the resume, I can tell you that we look, yes, if she's working in what is the science, it may be social science, it may be STEM, but we look at these things like, is she promoting the science outside? And this is a plus, this is a must. So do not neglect all these skills you might find outside the lab. And I think it might boost your career, but maybe you have another point of view. So please go ahead.
I think it was great. I mean, what you have shared, because I also had very similar experiences when I came to the US. I left my academic credentials there. I was teaching. I was, it was really very comfortable for me to live in my country, in Turkey. But now it is totally a kind of new life, new challenges. So I really see you and your messages, and they're very valuable for all of us. And I also want to add something. Perhaps we haven't mentioned, but I think we just need to think about the importance of scientific diasporas. This is something that we can connect through. We can create new, places to share our messages, and also, share our not only experiences but also our success too. And this is the connection between our home countries and us. So it has so many, I think, benefits if we involve in that kind of networks. So thank you so much. And I want to ask a question to Natasha. So if you didn't receive a grant already from Marie Curie, can you still benefit from Alumni Association, Natasha?
Hi, well, thank you very much for the question. So I just put a link in the chat of some of our upcoming events for the chapter. Thank you very much, Katarina, for giving me the reminder for that. So you don't necessarily have to be a part of the Alumni Association or indeed have received one of the grants to benefit from some of the events that our organization hosts. So some of the events we have are free and open for anyone to attend. And, events such as these, which are collaboration between a few different organizations, they are, of course, also free to the public and would be very useful for advancing your career and extending your job opportunities. So to answer very briefly, no, you don't have to be a part of the Alumni Association or have received a grant to benefit from some of the opportunities that are available through the Alumni Association.
Thank you. It was very useful. I'm also using very actively your website, and I'm getting your newspaper letter. So it's really very useful. Thank you. So, and the last question, but not least, so I'm wondering why the EU has changed and strengthened all its policies. Just very briefly, you explained some of them already, but yeah. So perhaps a kind of message from you as well.
It's a mix of things. The fact that it's been over a decade now that we have been funding the implementation of gender equality plans in research organizations and universities. We see this improves the situation. So, and also it developed a wealth of good practices. And so really examples of things that you can put into place and that give results and improve the situation. And there was a clear leadership, commitment at leadership level, at the fact that, clearly when Ursula von der Leyen became president of the European Commission, she named the first ever commissioner for equality, and she set achieving a union of equality as one of her main priorities. And this, and the fact that we have a commissioner, Maria Gabriel, who is very much committed, that really helped. So when we said there are different possibilities to try to accelerate the change and have a multiplier effect, at the European research area level, at a European level, when we proposed different scenarios to the commissioner, she went for the strongest. We will require that organization have a gender equality plan in place. So it's a political will, commitment, and also a situation that we have been supporting since a decade. But if I have the time just to say a few words, because I also have a very international career path, let's say. So I did my bachelor's in physics in Canada. Then I went to France for an engineering school, and I did a career in nano fabrication at CNRS. And now I'm trying to advance things at the commission level. So these are also career paths that are possible. It's possible to so it's maybe more difficult if you don't have an EU member state or associated country passport to have access to certain position in the European Commission, but really participating in the projects, that's really, you should give it a try, really. And I think EURAXESS is really helpful in doing that. And this wasn't mentioned, but EURAXESS will be transformed in a way under Horizon Europe into an ERA talent platform. So this is also something to keep in mind. It's in the work program for 2022, I believe, to develop this ERA talent platform. And there is a specific focus on women researchers and paying attention to work-life balance, dual career aspects. So this will be even reinforced even more in the new version of EURAXESS, let's say.
Yes, definitely. We need to work more for women researchers. And it's really good to know that the number is increasing. Still not enough, I mean, the percentage when we compare with men, unfortunately, but we're in progress, we see, and thanks to these policies and new initiatives, I think in the near future, we will have more, I mean, increasing numbers, women in science, technology, and innovation. So thank you very much for your remarks, I mean, all our speakers. So I want to give the floor to Natasha for the Q&A session. But before that, I want to add a few things about her. We appreciate her time today very much because she's defending her PhD thesis next week in two different universities. Yes. And she dedicated some of her time for us for the preparation of this event. And we wish her good luck and extend our congratulations in advance. Jackson and I would like to thank her again. So Natasha, I mean, if we have some questions, you can still, take them. So the floor is yours for the last session, Natasha.
Yeah, so thank you very much again, Daria, Jackson, Clotilde, and it was a big effort to put this event together, and it couldn't have been done without some excellent teamwork. So thank you very much for the congratulations prematurely. I hope things go well. So I'm doing an online Viva defense for Queen Mary University of London. And in a few months, I'm hoping to have a live defense for the second defense I have to do with the University of Strasbourg. And I'm hoping we can do it in person if it's possible, but we'll see, maybe before the summertime. So yes, indeed, one of the preconditions of the program that I was a part of that received this Marie Curie grant was that I would spend time in two different institutions, one in France and one in the UK. And I also, to obtain this European joint doctorate degree, would have to do two defenses. So it was kind of a double-edged sword, but thankfully, at least one of the defenses will be done by next week this time. So, so thanks again. We have brief Q&A in case anyone from the audience has any questions or would like to either write them in the chat or to voice them now. Otherwise, I have a few general questions for everyone that we've spoken to before on the panel. So if anyone else has any burning questions, I'll leave maybe a minute or so to gather your thoughts, and then I'll ask some of the general questions before we wrap up the session. All right, I don't see any hands raised, so I'll just ask one of the final general questions before we end our proceedings today. Thank you again to all of the speakers. All of the presentations were extremely rich and informative, and leaves me, as a female researcher myself, very optimistic about the policy making within this area. And I'm very interested to know maybe how each institution at the local level can maybe better contribute towards enhancing the ability for women, not only in research, but women in different fields of expertise, to actually bridge this final step, which is to get a career. Sometimes institutional support stops when the funding stops as well. This was the case a little bit for the previous grant that I was a part of, because now that we're outside of the PhD program, it's a completely different story when we have to face the job world and get connected to career opportunities. And sometimes the institutional support is a little bit weaker there, merely because the funding has been cut. So all of us have been left in slightly different positions depending on the individual institutions. So if anyone had some, kind of instant reaction or feedback to this sort of comment, or this last important gap between finishing the research at an institution and then obtaining the long-term career or finding a career path, please share your thoughts.
Maybe I can just say that that is a major focus of some recent policy at EU level. So the European Strategy for Universities and an upcoming Council recommendation on research careers, precariousness, so really early career stage, that's really a major focus. So hopefully there will be improvements on what is sometimes called the glass door index. You have the glass ceiling, but the glass door really entering the system. So this is something that we absolutely need to tackle, yes.
Great. And Katarina, do you have something to add?
Yeah, sorry, I keep moving my computer. Yeah, I would say that I think for me, for a big part of overcoming that when transitioning out of the PhD into a postdoc, which is what I did next, but even after that into every single step of my career path, is really networking. It goes back to what Clotilde was saying about never losing the connection with your previous landscape. Mobility is something that is really ingrained in the European minds of European researchers, because we have so many opportunities to do it from, since you start university, and it's not something that you find as ingrained here in Canada. I'm based in Canada. So it's really about making the most out of those opportunities to make connections and then try to sustain those over time, because and like EURAXESS has organized a great event also around cost actions, for example, being aware of those mechanisms that will allow you to build these networks. It's a work that never really stops. It can slow down in certain times of your career, but you always have to keep working at it, and because that's a lot of the times how you make these transitions in an efficient way. You hear about opportunities, you get mentorship, and even being part of networks like the North American chapter, like the Marie Curie Association, or not just the North American chapter, but any chapter of the Marie Curie Association. So one thing I would always do every time I move to a new country is look, okay, what are the networks that I can join? Is it female scientists? Are there, anything related to EU research funding? There's always something. There's even things that are like not related necessarily to the EU, but you can always find some connections with the research landscape in that country. And I would always make an effort to build those ties, like to build those links, because it would help me meet new people. So at the personal level, it was great. It would help with integration, but also professionally, I would meet a lot of people that, at one point in time, maybe not immediately, you might not make those connections, and you might not see the obvious support that they can give you right away, but they will help you or can help you, at one other point in your career path. So I would say that while we are waiting for the council resolutions and the infrastructure to come out, a really good way to sort of mitigate that transition or the gap is really to be really cognizant that you have to network and really continue to build that network as you can.
Thanks very much, Katerina. I guess personally, as a response to maybe my own comment or my own question, I do feel that sometimes the institutions that we have made our home for quite a bit of time as a research institution, once the funding is over, I think the support can continue a little bit more. And I think this is something that could potentially be added to some of the preconditions of receiving the grant in the first place to really more outwardly benefit the future of the researchers once the program is ended, once the deliverables have been submitted, to really make a stronger commitment towards assisting these researchers in their new situation. So for me personally, I also mentioned that I am from the US originally, and I decided to do this PhD in Europe and in France. And I am now considering applying for a French citizenship since I've been here for about 5 years and kind of extending my stay in Europe. But the reason why I decided to do this is because it's very, very challenging for somebody who doesn't have a European citizenship to continue their career in Europe. And this was what makes it challenging to accept a grant like this or an opportunity like this in the first place. If we don't get really solid support in terms of our future careers, it becomes extremely challenging to stay in the place where our talent has been attracted somewhere, and retaining that talent sometimes is not very high on the agenda of the research institution you are a part of, which is unfortunate, but perhaps this can be changed with some policy moves. So I think we'll start wrapping up here, and I'll turn over the floor to Jackson for some closing remarks. And thank you so much, everyone, again, for all of your participation. So floor is yours. Oh, yes, Clotilde, if you have something. Oh.
No, I just want to thank all of the speakers. I think this has been really nice, and Daria and I worked with you to try to make this a bit conversational. So thank you to the audience as well for sharing a few questions, and all of our speakers for engaging and really dissecting some concepts and some thoughts here. So I hope we can all keep the dialogue going in future events and future conversations. I'll just briefly remark that I was looking at the registration list. Obviously, not every single person that registers attends, but the 11 countries were represented, 11 distinct countries in the registration list. So thank you to our speakers for working with us across different time zones. I know it's the evening for many of you in attendance, and for some of our special speakers. So thank you very much for working outside of business hours and accommodating us to talk about this important topic. And then for EURAXESS North America, I'll sort of just underscore my comments from my brief presentation, where I want to remind you that we're here to support your research careers. So whether it's answering a specific question, connecting you with others in this topic of networking and keeping in touch with your past networks. That's part of our mandate, and putting together joint events like this are as well. So whether you want to reach us as an individual researcher with a concern, a topic of interest, or on behalf of your institution to think about ways we can partner and find speakers together, just as this event is proof, that's what we want to do for you. And like I said, all of our services are free, so really help us help you in advance research and also strengthen transatlantic research ties. So thank you to everyone for your participation. I'll turn it over to Daria to close, and thank you one last time for the speakers.
Thank you, Jackson. And it was very good to see you here, because you were the only man representing the whole, men. So thank you very much again. So I would like to thank our speakers for their great support and collaboration. I also want to thank Katerina, because she was with us from the very beginning of this, preparations for this event. And thank you all for attending this event, of course. So as women, we all have different and very unique stories. So I believe that each of us should share our experiences and also messages like today with others, not only with women, but also for women. So men also should be included in all of the policies. And I believe in the importance and value of sharing, networking, and empowering. So today's event was different from our other events for us, since our distinguished speakers and colleagues had the chance to touch on the problems again of women again, and shared with us some of the opportunities and policies, and a kind of hope that the policies are getting better. And we really appreciate sharing their experiences with us that may be helpful for women who search for new ideas and also encouragement for their future career plans. Now, perhaps we have a less number of audience, but on the YouTube channels, we are going to disseminate this video and to reach more people, more women. And I want to celebrate International Women's Day again and finish my remarks with one of my very best friends' messages for this particular week dedicated to women. So she said, always keep your standards, head and heels high, be proud of your accomplishments, joyful of your colorful life, and empower other women. So we hope to see you next time. Thank you very much.